Hey guys, RanterInShades here, that's my first Commemorates vlog style. Happy New Year to you all. I'm going to open this video with another behind-the-scenes anecdote about my year-end videos last year. In all the years I've been making videos, working on those two videos was the most stressed I had ever felt. I felt like I was on the biggest time crunch since the Danny Phantom video, one of the few other videos on my channel that had a deadline, when I waited until the absolute last minute for Blue Magus, or Cobalt the Crusader as he's known now, to get me his cameo clips barely in time for me to upload the video before Halloween was over, and poor Atticus was waiting patiently for me to be ready to set the video public so he could set his public. Best and Worst Songs of 2022 absolutely blows that experience out the water. To explain this, I'm going to tell you how I prepare for these videos. In the past, I would make note of the songs I would want to talk about in both videos, wait for the year-end chart to drop in the beginning of December, and make sure all the songs I'm wanting to talk about made it on, then put the list together, spend the next week or two writing both scripts and gathering all my visuals, and film both videos together around the third week of December, like before Christmas, and spend the rest of the month editing both videos to have out by New Year's Eve. I talked in last year's video about detachment from unhealthy influences, and that, along with everything else I do in my weekly routines, ended up piling on top of each other while working on the videos. Going to the gym, going on my walks, cooking my meals, watching my subscriptions, my therapy calls. It all felt really overwhelming while trying to do as much editing as I could on a given day. I pulled some late hours working myself silly trying to edit 2 to 3 segments a day. What didn't help was that the computer I was using at the time was on its last 100 gigabytes of storage, and having lots of storage, CPU, and RAM is very much necessary for things like video editing. With how much longer and more extravagant my videos have gotten as of late, you can only imagine how much space they took up on my computer. The editing process for both videos was really slow going as a result, especially since I would have to quit Final Cut to delete all the render files to free up space and get shit to run faster, but then I would have to render both projects for them to export faster, and I barely had enough space on my computer. There was also one day, the day before Christmas Eve, when there was a huge blizzard in my area that caused power to go out across the neighborhood, and I tried to finish editing the ABCDEFU segment in War Songs on battery power after I woke up, and it ran out before I could add the background instrumental, and the power wouldn't come back until the bi-weekly BC I have in my Discord server had started. As a result of all this, I was barely able to get both videos out by their deadline, and when they both premiered, I still ended up seeing at least one editing error that having more time to watch through them would have allowed me to catch. I'm still generally proud of both videos, but I can't say they met the quality standard I was hoping they would. My point with mentioning all this is that by the time it was all over, I knew that I was going to have to make some changes for the next year in terms of production for my yearly pop music evaluation, especially considering I started working part-time this year. In addition to getting my new computer with not 1, not 2, but 8 terabytes of storage, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and 12-core CPU that's helped editing to go a lot smoother, I decided that rather than wait for the year-end chart to drop before beginning production on the year-end videos, I was going to try to get at least the majority of scripting done in November, and then fix anything I need to when the year-end chart drops. I ended up spending most of November editing the first video of my new series, The Front Cover, and I intended on getting the bulk of scripting for the year-end videos done in the last week of the month, all for the purpose of filming earlier in December so I can have more time to edit and make the videos as much of bangers as I can. Thankfully, the year-end chart ended up dropping earlier than I was expecting. I was already trying to put together an idea of what I want both of my year-end lists to look like around the time I uploaded my last video, and the year-end chart came out literally the day after the last video premiered. I had heard Billboard was moving back the eligibility cutoff date to the last week of October, and I was curious if this would affect when the year-end chart would come out. And because that's exactly what ended up happening, I ended up starting the scripting process earlier than I normally do anyway, so everybody wins. Sean from Diamond Axe Studios once said that he aims to have each of his videos outdo the last in some way. And over the years, I've noticed I have a very similar mindset, particularly when it comes to my year-end stuff. They're some of my most consistently popular videos, so I feel like I have more expectations to meet with these ones. And as relieved as I was that the year-end chart coming out earlier meant I could begin production in November without having to worry that I'd have to scrap a segment I already wrote due to the song not making it on the year-end chart, there was one other thing looming over my head throughout the year that was getting me to dread the end of the year approaching. For the first time since 2014 at the earliest and 2016 at the latest, I wasn't hearing a lot of good songs in the world of pop. I'm usually more excited to make the best songs video because even if those videos don't perform as well as the worst songs videos, the quality of the songs I talk about in those videos are enough to motivate me. But this year I felt more ready for the worst list than I was the best list, and that's not a good sign. A lot of people consider 2022 to be the year pop music really declined, but I feel that's more of an apt descriptor for 2023, and that's not just me being hyperbolic. Maybe I just wasn't really paying attention, but 2023 was the drabbest year for pop music I've experienced in years, and this will definitely be reflected in the songs I'll be talking about in this video. As I implied earlier, the rules for these videos are that the songs must be on the Billboard year-end chart for this year, and I have to have heard them and found something worth discussing about them and having some laughs along the way. Anything that I put in the dishonorable mentions is more than likely a song I originally intended for the list proper, but didn't make it on the chart. If you want to verify that I'm not bullshitting about a song's inclusion, there's a link in the description to the year-end chart for you to give a look to see that the songs are indeed there. There's still a part of me that's apprehensive about how these videos are going to come out, but right now, here's my picks for the worst hit songs of 2023. Number 10. Yep, I'm just as surprised as you that people care enough about Lil Dicky's man crush Chris Brown to let him continue to have hits over a decade after that happened, rather than just letting him grow irrelevant like he deserves. But you know what's even more surprising? This is one of those older songs that got revived thanks to the much beloved TikTok making it a meme where they speed the song up. This song, Under the Influence, not to be confused with the albums from either Overkill nor Wildside, comes from the extended version of his 2019 album Indigo and got released as a single in wake of this TikTok resurgence. As much as I try to not sound as curmudgeon-y when talking about TikTok, since I understand it does play a pretty crucial role in how a song spreads around in the current industry, songs like this need to serve as a reminder that people need to be careful what kind of songs they allow this to happen with, to use TikTok for good instead of evil. I was never a fan of Chris Brown, even prior to the incident. Even outside of the fact that I was a pretty snobby and ignorant teenager that whined about pop and rap being popular than the stuff I listened to, I could never tell why Chris Brown was a big deal outside of the fact that his dance skills were quite good and rivaled that of Usher. Musically, I never thought he was anything special at all, and I still don't. But in the years following the incident, whenever I would hear about him or see that he had a song that was popular, I always figured one of two things were happening. Either he and everyone else just moved on from the incident even if they would never truly forget it, or he would slowly but surely fade away like a lot of pop acts from the 2000s and early 2010s did. But he still had hits, and whenever I took notice of one, I would go, huh. So this song's about Chris Brown being high on cough syrup.
Oh yeah, sure, you're just buying that for your bad coughs, right? Us too.
Even if it's being done to convey how wasted he is, I don't like listening to him slur his words. I'd like to think if he's still going to be a thing, this song would have something to show for it, but it just doesn't sound like he was really trying with this. Maybe he's at a point where he feels like he doesn't need to try because there's going to be people that hate everything he does no matter what. But what does that say about the fans he still has? Let alone the people that made the chorus a TikTok meme. I think I'm having one of those moments where I just feel like I'm getting old because this really doesn't make sense to me. The second verse makes me really uncomfortable. He decides to go on a tangent about the sex he wants to have and mentions wanting to make a sex tape with a GoPro. Now, I've heard some interesting depictions of sex in my time, but I have a hard time imagining anyone wanting to hear this. Make you cry like a baby, yo. That sounds terrible. And it reminds me of that certain Megan Thee Stallion song I've been trying hard to block out of my memory. I suppose it is better than listening to baby sounds, but then again, lots of things are. It's unfortunate that Chris Brown is even someone I'm talking about again in this series ever since Freaky Friday topped Worst Songs of 2018, but at least that gave me more to work with. That song did more to earn that top spot. It wasn't just a lame R&B ballad by the guy that punched Rihanna. He's put out songs before where I can at least understand why people liked them, irrespective of the incident. Like when Muse had Yeah 3X top the Best of 2011 video that I didn't archive because I didn't really like that video, partially for that reason. What exactly is Under the Influence supposed to have going for it? And you know what's sad? This isn't the only time we're talking about Chris Brown in this video. We're also talking about number 9. So remember that producer I yelled at last year when talking about Knife Talk by Drake, Metro Boomin? Apparently he's one of those producers like Calvin Harris and David Guetta that makes his own music with big features providing the vocals because Lord knows they aren't going to sing them. This one here features both Future and, once again, Chris Brown. When I look at the title of this song, my mind keeps telling me I should be listening to Racer X's album from 2000 called Superheroes, or the songs by Daft Punk or Ed Guy. This song is basically Future mumbling over this droning beat about doing drugs. The idea is that it makes him feel like a superhero. Or maybe these are drugs that literally turn him into a superhero. Doesn't that sound fun? Not really, no. He sounds so out of it that he has an extra line in his second verse where it sounds like the chorus should be starting. Ain't no facade, ain't no fugazi. I jump it off, I get paid. Drop top rush, I'm going crazy. I put a shop, smoking on haze. Not trying to floss, Cartier shades. Candy in the cup, gotta get paid. It sounds really uneven, like Future forgot how to count. There were already 16 bars, which is not only an even number, but also a square number, and having this extra bar ends up pushing the chorus ahead to where it starts on the wrong part in the beat, but it at least ends on the right part of the beat, so fair play, I suppose. What's weird about the song is that 2/3 of the way through, it decides to become a different song. It's like Metro Boomin was trying to be prog or something, which is certainly ambitious for a rap producer to do. But I feel like this is the kind of structure that would fly over the heads of your average listener of this type of rap. You see, this song is divided into two parts, heroes and villains. Future is meant to be the hero in this picture, and the villain Chris Brown. Honestly, that's actually kind of clever given, well, you know. But what's not so great is the kind of stuff Chris Brown says in his verse. It's the kind of whining you'd expect to hear from someone playing victim in wake of being given the cancel treatment when the consequences of their actions might have been justified.
So who's really the villain?
I could be one of those people that goes on a tirade about how appalling it is that Chris Brown still manages to have a career, but when it's been over a decade since the incident, you think it might be a bit late to be doing the shtick of being the guy that everyone hates. But then again, he says this.
They don't wanna see you run, they wanna see you in a penitentiary.
Maybe this is one of those birds of the same feather flock together dealios, but you're not seriously gonna plagiarize that piece of shit. That makes this song's cheesy sample of Jay-Z quoting The Dark Knight sound like a stroke of genius.
Tired be a hero, but live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
Superhero is all over the place. It goes from a generic sounding song about doing drugs to Chris Brown trying to get everyone to feel sorry for him. And unlike in prog where there's a time signature change or a change in feel or even style where everything flows well into one another, the switch up sounds really forced. I have no idea who the song is supposed to be for, but its success here is certainly one of the bigger head scratchers I've discussed here. Number 8. One thing you're going to be seeing a lot in this video is samples. 2023 loves its recognizable samples, though some are more recognizable than others. This one is pretty tame in comparison to some more obnoxious ones we'll talk about later, sampling The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, one of the earliest conscious rap songs by one of the earliest rap groups to ever exist. And not to mention, the first to get inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before they started letting in more rappers that are totally a part of rock history. My taste in rap doesn't tend to get much older than the mid-80s, but I can appreciate the foundation laid out by people like Grandmaster Flash. When I first heard the beat in Players by Coil Ray, I could have sworn she was sampling Check Yourself by Ice Cube. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but Wikipedia says that it, and I quote, uses the same beat as Grandmaster Flash's The Message. It's a really weird choice of a sample to have for a song like this, because while the Grandmaster Flash song certainly has a lot to say, this is just a song about how
girls is players too.
I mean, it's not like we didn't know that already. There may be a double standard with some people regarding what kind of behavior is acceptable for men or women to engage in, but you'd have to be extremely sheltered and naive to think that there aren't women out there that are just as materialistic and get around just as much as men, let alone what society thinks of that. Me personally, for as much as I try to take the approach of, okay, that's your business, I'll leave you to it, I'm also of the belief that if you're going to act like a douchebag, that's how I'm going to view you, regardless of what's between your legs. I would have found this song just as eye-rolling if it were made by a dude. I've scoffed at a lot of brag rap songs in my time, and while bragging itself isn't the main issue, songs like this just don't have anything to say that justifies the brag. This is just a generic brag rap about having money and treating the opposite gender as an afterthought.
He blowing on my phone, but I'm ignoring him. He thinking he the one, I got like 4 of him.
And Coil Ray has this weird idea that up until this point, it was only men, or at least commonly men, that did this. Like, lady, I'm pretty sure the feminist movement, even the really annoying variant of it, sealed that deal for you a long time ago. And I once again need to ask, what makes you think I think any differently of one gender or the other acting like this, let alone making a song like this about it when I find it dumb regardless?
If he broke, then you gotta let him go.
I mean, if that's who you want to sound like, I guess go off, sis. Number 7. I've made this known before, but I don't like children. I find children insufferable, and if you knew about the kids that live on my block, you would agree. And I really don't like hearing a group of children sing, especially on songs like this.
All my life.
Lil Durk, wait, holy fuck, his first name is literally Dirk. His song All My Life, not to be confused with the infinitely better Foo Fighters song or even the infinitely better Run the Jewels song, has the most Kids Bop sounding chorus I've ever heard in a song since I Love It by Icona Pop, and that song was annoying as piss. I mean, it's better than the goo goo gaga sounds on Crybaby, but that's not really saying much. The song's basically a more annoying sounding and less potent A Lot by 21 Savage. It's Durk in cover talking about his struggles and how much he had to fight to get to where he is. Why does this song need a children's choir singing on this? The subject matter and even the language creates this weird dissonance that makes the chorus even more uncomfortable than it already is. Maybe you could argue that some kids do experience these kinds of things growing up, but with how young they are, I'm willing to wager that they don't yet have the understanding of these things that adults or even teenagers have experienced, so I'm not sure I'm being given enough of a reason why they should be here. Hey guys, Future Shades here. A thought came to my mind while I was editing this, and I'm not sure why I didn't bring this up in the original script, but I recalled another song that makes use of a children's choir. And it's a song I've talked about all the way back in my Power Ballads video, Mama Don't You Cry by Steelheart, my favorite piano ballad of all time. Towards the end of the song, they bring in a children's choir to have sing the final chorus. Now, while granted, this is my least favorite part of the song, since it always just kind of felt unnecessary and it kind of disrupts the tone of the song that up until this point was very heartfelt. It at least makes more sense contextually than the case with All My Life. The song is about the loss of a loved one, more specifically Miljenko Matijevich's mother. And while maybe this isn't something that every kid can relate to, this is something I think kids have an easier time understanding than the stuff that's talked about in All My Life. So the use of the children's choir there makes even less sense. In addition to the kiddos, what's also weird to hear are these moments in Durka Durka Durka's verse where he randomly switches to his upper register. It's like an audio version of the kind of jump scare people that hate jump scares bring up when talking about why they hate jump scares. Also, why does the keyboard and the beat make me think of Heaven by Bryan Adams?
All my life, they be trying to keep me down.
This is coming from someone that likes that song, by the way. Funny how I compared this song to A Lot, because much like on that song, J. Cole is featured. I'm not just saying this because J. Cole is someone that entered my library this year, but it feels sad seeing him on this. Just like in A Lot, he's the best part of the song, and it just makes me wish his talents were utilized elsewhere. His flows, along with the kinds of things he brings up in his verse, blow everything Drickly Doo does out the water, especially when it comes to the part where he says,
Never even heard a little buddy, till somebody murder little buddy. Now I'm on the phone searching little buddy name, got to playing his tunes all day in my room. Thinking, damn, this shit wicked to get their names buzzing. Some niggas just gotta go lay in a tomb. And media thirsty for clicks.
It reminds me of this condescending Wonka meme I saw after Gene Wilder died. Even though what Cole says next does sound a little gatekeepy.
I got a new rule, if you ain't ever posted a rapper when he was alive, you can't post about him after he get hit.
I would love to listen to a song about this concept. Why does it need to be on this song, though? I can understand if Lil Buddy came from the community Cole or Durky the Turkey are from, but this is a song about your struggles that you rose through, so I'm not sure talking about him on this song makes as much sense as you think. That's ultimately my thing with All My Life. It's not just annoying sounding, but also confusing. I can't exactly say this about Sir Durks a lot, or at the very least I'm not the person that would say it, but J. Cole is a lot better than this. I guess the potential exists in this song, but it gets brought down a lot by Durker King's performance, and of course those kids that need to go back to watching Paw Patrol or something. Number 6. I was kind of hoping I wasn't going to talk about Morgan Wallen at all this year. I feel like I gave out all my general feelings about him last year. How I don't hate him, I don't think he's untalented, and how I feel like continuing to hold the N-word incident over his head after he took accountability for it is not only counterintuitive, but also just a lazy method of critique. But after releasing a double album in 2021 that I'm just now realizing has the same name as a Michael Jackson album, and I'm not sure if it's intentional, he released what basically amounts to a double album this year called One Thing at a Time. 36 tracks, clocking in at a little under 2 hours, and you know how many of those songs are on the year-end chart? 8. Roughly a quarter of this album is on this chart, the most from any other artist. It cannot be understated that Morgan Wallen has been quite ubiquitous in popular music. And of the songs of his on the year-end chart that I'm familiar with, Think About Me is pretty easily the worst one. Country and trap are both genres I'm not really crazy about, but what I'm definitely not crazy about is the two being combined. The beat is way too energetic for the rest of the instrumentation to work with, and it just sounds lopsided. If the trap beat were gone, the song would still sound pretty mediocre, but there would at least not be this irritating factor douching it up. The mismatched instrumentation reminds me a lot of that shitty radio mix of Somebody That I Used to Know that I mentioned in Best Songs of 2012, and that you just don't want to hear this kind of production layered underneath acoustic guitars. The obvious difference being that this song will never reach the classic status that Somebody That I Used to Know did, even with that radio mix. Looking at the lyrics, they strike me as Morgan wanting to convey that his ex downgraded from him, but all I end up thinking is, dude, why do you care? If she was as awful as you're claiming when you say,
Don't feel bad for you, but I feel bad for him. And all the hell you gon' be putting him through.
Then why would you care if she does think about you? It comes off like someone wanting the deets about their ex's new relationship when they'd be better off just moving on and leaving it alone. Not to mention, if she's entering a new relationship, I think it would imply that a previous partner would be among the last concerns of hers, if not the last, unless if it was really obvious that she's only doing this to make you jealous or rub it in your face, which the song doesn't give me any reason to believe is the case. I'd like to think that if Morgan is going to have this many hits coming from a single album, irrespective of how bloated it might be, and they all make it on the year-end chart, the music would be enough to show for it. This just makes me think too much of when artists like Drake and Taylor Swift rack up all the top slots on the charts whenever they release an album, because the streaming data of all the tracks is being collected all at once. I get that a lot of people love Morgan Wallen, but if he's going to be the biggest artist in country, I would at least prefer if he didn't veer into the trap stuff, especially not after what we saw last year with Broadway Girls. Number 5. Drake and 21 Savage, together again. You just can't keep these two apart. They always need to do songs together. So much that they made an album together, and Rich Flex is what it opens with. Going into this song, I expected it to be cheesy and try hard, as is on brand for Drake songs. But this is another song that does what Superhero did and splits the song into two halves. But unlike with Superheroes, the two halves don't seem like they're sharing a particular theme other than probably the flex aspect. I'm not sure if I should be playing that boy in a band clip anymore for that word like I've done in the past. An issue I've always had with 21 Savage ever since talking about a lot in War Songs of 2019 is how low energy he sounds rapping over the heavy subjects he does, like when he says,
"Never send a bitch or die. That's how you get shot."
Much of the flexing he does in his verse seems to be in relation to sex, but it gets muddied by all the violent references. I did find this funny though.
I'm a savage. 21. Smacker, booty, and magic.
Yeah, very savage of you to mimic an already existing song called Savage.
I'm a savage, yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet.
What makes Rich Flex more all over the place than Superhero is how abrupt Drake comes in after 21's verse to do that free flow and auto-tune singing he helped to popularize in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
All of you hoes need to remember who y'all talking to.
And then we get a beat that sounds like it wants to be Humble by Kendrick Lamar. Drake's verse here sounds way less focused than even 21's was. The singing he does at the beginning makes him sound like an obnoxious elementary school kid acting like he runs the place.
Sticks and stones, chrome on chrome, that's just what a nigga on.
And then he throws a barrage of acronyms that come at you so fast that you barely have time to digest everything. One that jumped out at me was this.
Man, niggas seeing me, I'm Young Money, CMB.
Why is he not into Young Money Entertainment or YMCMB in 2023? Hey, that rhymes. They're no longer the overbearing force in hip-hop that I viewed as being the downfall of rap a decade ago. And even if they are, Drake isn't even listed as still being signed to the label. His verse has a similar aura of building himself up like a badass that 21 Savage does, along with the depictions of his sexual escapades. And he comes off as a bit defensive when he takes his verse there.
Rappers love asking if I fuck when you know he did. When you know he did. She came in heels, but she left out on a cozy shit.
This is presumably in reference to rumors circulating about him sleeping with Kim Kardashian when she was still married to Kanye, and he immediately brushes it off with a little comparison to the late Kobe Bryant.
Hey, I'm living every 24 like Kobe did.
Is this the worst Drake song I've ever heard?
No.
I don't think he'll ever make a song worse than Girls Want Girls, but compared to other songs of his I've talked about in this series, it's the most unfocused and haphazard. And that's not even just referring to the beat switch between his and 21 Savage's verses, but neither of the verses themselves really serve as being anything more than generic bragging that makes Started From the Bottom sound more competent. Number 4. It seems like every year there's a new female rapper doing basically the same shtick as so many others. I've made it pretty obvious that I'm not a fan of these kinds of artists, largely because they go out of their way to sound as off-putting as possible and not really do much to differentiate themselves from one another. Glorilla in her song Tomorrow might not be the most abrasive example ever of it, but she certainly tries to push herself up to that point, so it's not much of a shock that she would have Cardi B featured on this part two version of this song. Aw, missed opportunity to call the song Tomorrow. It sounds really unclear what this song's supposed to be about. Right out the gate, Gorilla Glue comes off like she's wanting to rip and tear at random people for no reason. It just sounds like a general tantrum over people being mean to her. It's a little clearer by the second half of her verse when she mentions her ex bonking an old friend of hers, only to then go back to hurling incoherent and lazy punchlines. I've been sitting here trying to make sense of this, and I think I finally found a song in this series that actually stumped me. Even the chorus has me lost.
Can't say your name up in my songs, might not fuck with you tomorrow.
Why would it even matter if you chose not to name drop when you're still talking about the person? It's like when people make vague social media posts and argue semantics by saying, this isn't about anyone in particular, it might have been inspired by a particular person, but it's just a general statement. Only here it's even more vague. I've seen that Cardi B's verse is the main thing people tend to care about with this song, and I guess I understand why. It's still pretty unclear who this twin she refers to is, and if she's even the target of her verse. But other than that, it doesn't sound too far off from what we kind of expect from her in any song. She's aggressive and in your face, and while I see that as being the main thing people like about her, that's always been the main culprit behind just about every song of hers I've talked about in this series. She doesn't come across as any more unpleasant than she did in Bodak Yellow or Money. She even makes a little reference to another song of hers I've talked about before.
Bitches be on dick today, sing every word of up tomorrow.
That sounds like it's supposed to be a shot at people that criticize her but will still bump her music, but the use of the word dick followed by the mention of up is making me think once again about that American Pie naked mild boner pill scene I mentioned in War Songs of 2021 when making a joke about what up and stuck means. Please stop making me think about that scene. And this isn't even mentioning how at that point in her verse, she also rhymes tomorrow with tomorrow twice. In addition to the song itself being generally unpleasant, the beat is also as such. It's one of those Phrygian tunes built around the notes E and F, and it makes me think of a darker take on the music you hear when Mario touches a star, as well as Mo Bamba by Sheck West, one of the laziest sounding songs I've ever heard.
I got hoes calling a young.
Point being, I don't really like when the songs revolve around a progression where the chords are a half step apart. Not like that would help a song that already sounds overly aggro. Number 3. I mentioned earlier 2 songs that I was wanting to see on the year-end chart that didn't end up making it on. I don't think I have too much else to say about I'm Good Blue and Betty Get Money, other than how they use even cheesier samples than Super Freaky Girl. I'll bookmark them for next year, even though I'm skeptical if they'll be on the chart if not even Girls Want Girls by Drake could make it on this year. I should just not make predictions like this anymore, because right now I have the biggest goddamn foot in my mouth. When I first heard this song last year, I wrote down in my notes to look out for this song on the year-end chart when it drops, because it would be a shoo-in for the series. But it wasn't there, so I figured if it wasn't going to be on in 2022, there's no way it would make it on this year. It didn't happen with Girls Want Girls by Drake, so why would it happen with this? It's just way too dumb. It carries too great an aura of a novelty song to have the kind of staying power to carry over to the next year. Yeah, I was correct that Betty Get Money, the song that samples the Rickroll, wasn't going to carry over for that reason, and I figured I'm Good with its stupid sample of Blue Dabba Dee by Eiffel 65 would be no different. Not to mention my thinking, does BB Rexa even have the star power for a song like this to carry over? Is David Guetta even still relevant a producer? But shows what I know, right? Okay, fine, I'll take the L on this. You got me, Billboard. That make you happy? It's not like it really changes my perception of the song. Like I said a year ago, the biggest issue I have with this song and others that take this lazy approach to sampling is that I think the songs being sampled, particularly meme songs like Blue Dabba Dee, should be left alone. I can't tell you the number of times I'd be at work and this song would come on and I'd think, oh, they're playing Blue Dabba Dee? Wait, no. Why would they do that? This is obviously fucking I'm Good. Then the vocals would come in and I'd be like, ah, see, there it is. Blue Dabba Dee may have an earwormy melody, but you just don't want to hear it appropriated in a way that makes Guetta look like he's just trying to leech off the popularity of a meme he doesn't truly get. Worse yet, he's using the same sampling tactic that J.R. Rodham, aka was infamous for using on songs like What You Say by Jason Derulo, SOS by Rihanna, Beautiful Girls by Sean Kingston, and this fucking abomination that I really wish I mentioned in my rip-offs video.
Ghetto, ghetto girl. She's been living in a ghetto, ghetto. I bet she never had a backstreet guy. I bet her mother never told her why.
Thank you, Muse, for making me aware of this bullshit. I always figured this tactic died after Mr. I need to put my annoying-ass watermark at the beginning of every song I work on fell out of relevance, but I guess D Guetta is here to assist in its revival. But who is this David Guetta person? If you don't know, he's a producer who's best known for working with the likes of Akon, Rihanna, Britney Spears, and most notably, the Black Eyed Peas. But he's also one of those producers that makes his own music that he has other vocalists sing on, and he was damn near everywhere in the early 2010s. He would release these songs under his name and list the person singing on the track as a featured artist, and he probably didn't even realize they were his songs. Where Them Girls At by David Guetta featuring Flo Rida and Nicki Minaj. Without You by David Guetta featuring Usher. Titanium by David Guetta featuring Sia. Turn Me On by David Guetta featuring Nicki Minaj. You get the idea. The big thing these songs all had in common for me was how generic and overproduced they sounded, and that makes for another reason I cringed massively when Guetta got his grubby hands on this innocent little 90s tune. Featured on this is BB Rexa, someone whose name I remember first hearing sometime in 2014 or 2015, but I couldn't tell you a single song of hers outside of that one she did with Florida Georgia Line. Like a number of pop artists of the last decade, she's another one of those singers that just existed, so I'm not sure why she of all people was called on to sing on this. No matter the case, another big problem I have with I'm Good is how it hardly has anything to say. There are countless songs about simply having a good time, but this may very well be the most surface level example of it, because that's literally all it says. It's to a point where it feels like the word fucking in the chorus is BB's way of forcing the song, and it makes her sound like one of those bitchy high school girls in their rebellious phase. Not to mention, the song also serves as an in-your-face counter to Blue Dabba Dee, since that song is about the little blue guy feeling down. It's not like that song has a lot to say either, but it's at least bringing more to the table than simply being all,
I'm feeling good. I'm having the best night ever.
If 2022 was the year of the overbearing lazy sample, then I suppose 2023 is the year it became a movement. I'd like to think this is a phase pop music is going through, and it probably is. Maybe in about a year or two this'll stop, but ladies and gentlemen, this isn't the only song on this list with an overbearing lazy sample. There was also number 2. I shouldn't have to explain this to you guys because it should be pretty easy for you to figure it out for yourself, but I am a guy. I might not be the most traditionally masculine guy around, there are interests I have that might not exactly be conventional for men, but I've never believed that makes me any less male. With that in mind, being that I was never part of its target demographic, Barbie never really held any relevance to my life at all, outside of as a character in Toy Story and Barbie Girl by Aqua, which we'll get to in a bit. And it's for that reason that I didn't feel the need to see the Barbie movie at all this year, along with the fact that I felt the main reason anyone even cared about that movie at all was because of the Barbenheimer thing. But since part of my research for Best Songs of 2022 involved rewatching Encanto, against my better judgment, I figured I should watch the thing just to see if it provides any context behind the songs from the movie's soundtrack that made it on the year-end chart. Spoilers, this one held the least amount of relevance since it's literally just the end credits song. Don't expect me to say a lot about the Barbie movie, since that's not the point of this. My expectations were subverted, I'll say that much, and I'll mention a little as to why in the Best Songs video. But even if I hadn't decided to give the movie a watch, irrespective of it being part of my research for a YouTube video, Barbie World felt disgusting to hear. Yeah, the sample of Blue Dabba Dee and I'm Good was annoying, but I felt physically ill hearing what was done to Barbie Girl in this song. This is more than just a sample. It's a bastardization of a sample. The more that I think about it, I genuinely believe this is the worst sampling I've ever heard in a song. I don't understand why Aqua is being credited, since it's not like any of the members made any contributions to the song beyond the song being sampled. No, hearing Lee Nystrom's voice in the background doesn't count. I suppose it is fitting that Nicki Minaj is the one to perform this song, since she's always referred to herself and her fans as Barbies, which I always liked interpreting as a reference to how plastic she is. Out of all the songs of hers I've subjected myself to, this one is probably the corniest I've ever heard her sound since her verse on Beauty and a Beat.
But I gotta keep an eye out for Selena.
I thought Super Freaky Girl, funnily enough another song with a cheesy sample, was dumb last year, but dude, the Barbie references and the lyrics are a type of cringe I'm just not used to feeling when listening to a Nicki Minaj song, especially since she has to cram in some sexual references, since this is Nicki Minaj after all.
The way Kim be killing shit got me yelling out like the Scream House.
But to be fair, most of those double entendres are attributed to Ice Spice, who was of no relation to any of the Spice Girls.
And I throw it back so he losing it, and I give the box with no shoes in it. Yeah, I know the trick, so I got him brick.
I'll give credit, the flow in her verse is actually pretty cool in spots. But the thing is, although you are free to imagine her and her friends in such scenarios, since life is our creation and such, Barbie was never designed to be a sexual thing. It's not even a theme that's explored in the movie, so I'm just sitting here going, why are you doing this? Maybe this point might have made more sense to bring up in the last segment, since it's probably a better example, since Barbie World was made to be included in a movie based around Barbie. And I doubt you need me to tell you this, but this sampling is a problem that's been rampant in the music industry for the past couple of years. A theory many people, including me, have as to why this is as prevalent as it is can be attributed to how booming the nostalgia market is. It's the same market that produces When We Were Young Fest, Sick New World, the Summer of '99 tour, all the reboots, remakes, revivals, and sequels to legacy properties that have been coming out this decade, and so much more. And it's not like the influx of older songs becoming eligible for inclusion on the year-end chart thanks to getting revived on TikTok helps with that. Don't get me wrong, I'm Mr. Nostalgia. Fuck it, Mr. Dr. Professor Nostalgia. But a big reason people are critical of things like this is because a lot of the time it's unnecessary and doesn't need to exist, as the original property was fine as is. Barbie Girl isn't exactly a song I hold very near and dear to me, as I always saw it as kind of a guilty pleasure novelty tune, but I nonetheless hate how it's used in this song. And I'd love if people are going to sample recognizable songs, they'd be more creative with their sampling, like rappers were in the 80s and early 90s, before sampling was rendered copyright infringement without securing the proper credit. Actually, I do have one story I'd like to share about Barbie Girl, since unless I include it in the sequel to the Guilty Pleasures video I keep saying I'll make, I have no idea if I'm ever going to mention this in a video. But the way I got into the song is really adorable. I was maybe 13, and my little brother comes home from school one day, and he tells me about a song. I don't know who he heard it from, or if he actually heard the song, but he told me it went like, I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. My boobs are plastic. My butt's elastic. You can brush my hair and touch me anywhere. Imagination, life is your creation. Me being a horny 13-year-old, I get the song on iTunes, and you can only imagine how disappointed I was that those weren't the actual lyrics. I wasn't sure if the song was going to make it on the year-end chart, but since it didn't, it's been demoted to the dishonorable mentions. In classic early 2020s fashion of stupid sampling of songs you want to be left alone, here's Baby Don't Hurt Me by our old friend David Guetta, Anne-Marie, and Coi Leray. What song does this sample, you ask? None other than What Is Love by Haddaway. I bet Will Ferrell and Chris Catton are absolutely thrilled to see what's being done here to the song they love bopping their heads to. What Is Love is one of those songs that I've always had a semi-ironic enjoyment of. It's a fun tune, and again, I think it should be left alone. I've heard my fair share of annoying sampling, but Baby Don't Hurt Me comes off as way more insulting, even down to the title being a lyric from the very song being sampled. What Is Love may not be the most profound song ever, but there's this charm associated with it that's the reason it's looked at fondly. And of course, it's the main thing anyone knows about Night at the Roxbury. Here, the vocals sound incredibly overproduced, and the instrumentation sounds overly generic. It also sounds kind of dated, as the drop after the chorus makes me feel like I'm back in 2013 when every pop song was doing that. Come to think of it, you know what Baby Don't Hurt Me reminds me a lot of? Feel This Moment by Pitbull and Christina Aguilera, a song from 2013 that has a really generic and overproduced sample of Take On Me by Aha. I thought that song was annoying back in the day, but its sampling doesn't even get me as frustrated as this.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
The lyrics also make me go, okay, pump the brakes. I will say they do keep true to the overall theme of the original song. Even if you've never looked up or paid attention to the lyrics in What Is Love, I'm sure you can tell what the song's supposed to be about. It's about a guy wanting his feelings reciprocated and to be treated right, whereas Baby Don't Hurt Me takes it in a much more sexual direction. Anne-Marie's verse in particular doesn't sound like it justifies what's being said in the chorus. Coi Leray at least says this in her verse.
One day you hit and you ghost, telling me lies and it's killing me slowly.
That's the kind of stuff I could see someone wanting to reinterpret the original adding because it stays true to the theme of wanting to be treated right and, well, not hurt no more. But it gets bogged down by all the sex bullshit and you just end up going, what's the point? That's the main thing I ask myself when I hear this song. What is the point of building a song around this sample? What Is Love is cool, we can all agree on that, but it doesn't deserve being appropriated for something like this. I already found David Guetta to be obnoxious, but I never imagined he would stoop this low. I already hated I'm Good, but Guetta having this song out too gets me thinking, dude really jumped on that annoying sample of a popular song bandwagon, didn't he? This other song I want to talk about here, I do not see being on the year-end chart next year, and a big reason why is because absolutely no one likes it. Like, I've never seen anyone try to legitimize or rationalize it. Rather, it's one of those rare songs that everyone unanimously agrees is terrible. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but Colleen Ballinger's Toxic Gossip Train song is embarrassing as shit. I'm not going to recap on who she is and what she did. There's no shortage of videos you can look up about it, but I just have this to say. As someone that's both witnessed and been on the receiving end of actual toxicity and actual gossip over so much less, you, Colleen, can kindly eat shit. Your little ukulele ditty is already limp-wristed, but song form or not, I can't stand when YouTubers trivialize the severity of their actions and give these kinds of non-apologies. It's so pathetic. I'd rather call it, please, the song. And of course, the dishonorable mention section wouldn't be complete without me complaining about Christmas songs being included on the year-end chart. It just doesn't stop. All I Want for Christmas Is You is at number 50 goddamn 5. In addition to that, and all the other ones I mentioned last year still being on, they have a new friend joining them. Thankfully, it's not Wonderful Christmas Time like I worried last year, but rather Last Christmas by Wham at number 84. I should have known. Don't get me wrong, Wham's great, but I once again have to ask if there could possibly be an amendment to how streaming data is collected so we don't have to see as many Christmas songs as we do make it on here, because I'm really scared to find out which one's going to be here next year, taking the place of a song that might otherwise be more deserving of an inclusion. I've complained about several artists in this series over the years, with a number of them being what I like calling recurring features. Taylor Swift, Drake, Nicki Minaj, Justin Bieber, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, and more. It's a common misconception that if I talk about an artist in the Worst Song series, it means I hate them. However, while I'm very much not a fan of these artists, I wouldn't go as far as to say that's really true with any of the people I mentioned, especially not Taylor Swift after the improvements she's been making, one of which will be discussed in the Best Songs video. I'd say these people have songs I really loathe, many of which I voiced my displeasure towards in this series, but to me that's different from hating them. I've said before on my channel that I'm very particular about the kinds of people I claim to hate, and making a few garbage songs honestly isn't something I see as warranting of that energy. However, out of all the artists I've complained about in this series, aside from maybe a couple other people, there's only one artist I would make an exception for and go out of my way to say that I wholeheartedly hate, no questions asked. And that, of course, would be none other than Meghan Trainor. We meet again. I always knew she was still around, but I figured in the years that followed 2016, when last I spoke about her, she'd entered the land of irrelevance. When we think of her, we think of the environment of the mid-2010s that allowed her to rise in popularity. Songs like All About That Bass, Dear Future Husband, and No could have only existed in that time period when the culture war and Tumblr feminism were at their most prevalent. And when you really break it down, the core reason as to why I despise Meghan Trainor isn't so much because of her music, but because of what she represented. I've gotten asked a handful of times if I still dislike social justice warriors or if my political views have changed in recent times. The short answers to those questions are yes and not really. I still see myself as the same center-left libertarian that I always was. But the TLDR is that while I have become less polarized towards feminism and leftism than I might have been in the past, especially with my being more willing to hold conservatives in the manosphere to the same standard as SJWs than I might have back then, there's always going to be a sour taste that gets put in my mouth when it comes to certain talking points, especially when they're made in such a condescending manner. Meghan Trainor represents that Tumblr mindset that so agitated me back in those days, and I assume that as people allowed themselves to become less polarized as the years went on, there'd be less of a reason for her to still be around. But the moment I sat down last year to watch ARTV's and eventually Taught in the Shadows Worst Songs of 2022 videos and saw this song being featured, I said to myself, no, it can't be. She's
supposed to be dead!
And just like I said about ABCDEFU last year, I knew right away that if and when it carried over to this year, there would be a special place reserved at the #1 spot in my War Songs video for it. She's damn lucky her song Mother didn't make it on the year-end chart, and that I'm allowing time for it to potentially carry over to next year, because I would have had way too much to say about that pile of shit. Made You Look is essentially the feel of All About That Bass combined with the lyrics of Me Too. And right away, it should be obvious why this is not good. I remember feeling when All About That Bass came out back in 2014 that the 50s doo-wop throwback she was doing could have been endearing were it not for the self-important lyrics and her trying to speak for the majority. And that is very much carrying over to this, particularly with lines like,
Ladies, if you feel me, this your pop.
Another thing that went through my mind when I first heard the song is that Meghan Trainor was so desperate to shoot herself back in the mainstream eye that she made a throwback to a throwback. Like, with Me Too and No being kind of a departure from the doo-wop thing, she once Made You Look to remind everyone of one of the main factors in what drew people to her back in the day. Like we're nostalgic for 2014 or something. Screw that. 2014 was a dogshit year, and I don't want to feel nostalgic for it. It also feels like a throwback in the sense that I feel like I'm back in 2016 again when I really like bitching about shit like this. The main similarity I noticed between this song and All About That Bass and Me Too is that Meghan is trying to portray herself as this sexy cutie and speaking for everyone by saying that it's unanimously agreed on that she's a sexy cutie. Along with that, she feels this need to project some shade towards anyone indifferent to her and what she's wearing, or isn't wearing. Yes, that's an image I'd love to have in my head. By saying,
well, you're still giving me attention anyway. I made you look.
Like, yeah, that may be true. I am dedicating time in my day to talking about you in a video that's viewable on my channel, but even if you really want to adopt a haters make me famous mentality, it doesn't really change what's being said here. Plus, you have the gall to title this song after the last line in Aladdin that the genie says,
Made you look.
There's also the body positivity angle that she also coasted on throughout her career, even as she dropped a significant amount of weight. I'm all for people being happy and comfortable in their own bodies, speaking as someone who also struggles with some body image issues myself. But much like the songs of hers mentioned previously, it once again feels like I'm being projected onto, and that's not something people tend to appreciate. It's that attitude that was a major factor in why I've found Meghan Trainor to be as insufferable as I have for all these years. And with all these things colliding, is it any wonder why she is one of the only artists, if not the only artist, that I feel at all comfortable saying I hate? And is it any wonder why I'm as disappointed as I am that she was allowed another hit rather than being told to stay in 2014 where she belongs? And is it any wonder why I have no reservations in putting this song as my #1 in this video? There will hardly ever be a song that pisses me off the way Dear Future Husband and No did. There's a reason I put No at #1 in that mini ranking of the songs I put at #1 in my Worst Songs videos at the end of Worst Songs of 2019 in honor of the end of the decade. Made You Look might not be as god-awful as those two, but all the hallmarks and what makes me hate her music are present here. Even after having never heard a peep from Meghan in 7 years, nothing appears to have changed at all. It's like when you unsub from a YouTuber you used to casually watch because their content was becoming redundant, repetitive, and tedious, and you check in on their channel some years later and see that they're still doing that same shtick. That's what hearing Made You Look feels like. And with a song like this, combined with how much of a drag 2023 felt like for pop music, I'm hoping 2024 does something to shake things up so we can put ourselves back on the path to make pop music great again. Of course, that isn't to say that 2023 was awful. Generally speaking, I actually quite enjoyed this year. In addition to the job I alluded to, I broke my concert record for the year once again, got new furniture from my dad in wake of his moving in with my now stepmom, continued my progress in weight loss, continued upping my production value, started a new series that I'm excited to continue next year, furthered my mental health, and of course, celebrated my channel's 10-year anniversary with perhaps my favorite video I've ever made, Just Enjoy Music. If there's any video of mine I think everyone needs to watch, any video that I would want to represent my legacy, it's that one. Stick around for more positivity because the top 10 best songs of 2023 is coming up next. I'm Shades, and I'll see you next time. Gotta think of something witty to end this with. 24.